Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Nonviolence International's YouTube channel. I'm Nimesh, and in this latest installment of the Spotlight series, I have the great privilege of speaking with Alex Kofi Donkor, who is a human rights advocate and an LGBTQ activist. He is the founder and current director of LGBT Rights Ghana, a movement of mostly young LGBTQIA persons who are championing a safe, inclusive, and free society for LGBTQ persons in Ghana. Alex Kofi Donkor, thank you so much for being here with me today.
Pleasure to be here.
So, as I was doing research for this interview, several articles talked about how earlier generations of LGBTQ activists in Ghana took a more quiet, more discreet approach. So I think someone called it like the backdoor approach, but your approach has been more confrontational and more visible. So can you explain why you've taken this approach and how it differs from the past?
First of all, I identify as a gay man, and of course I'm a Ghanaian, and I've lived most of my life here in Ghana. And as a gay man growing up in Ghana, I've had to experience the having to live in the closet and having to be conflicted with your sexuality, and then also religious beliefs and societal norms and expectations and all. And so that really took a lot of toll on me growing up, to the point where I denied my sexuality all throughout my teenage. Until I got to the university was when I confronted my sexuality through a lot of research. And so in doing so, and also through the research, I also realized that there are lots more people who actually identify as LGBTQ persons. And whatever I was feeling or whatever I'm feeling, it's not something that is strange. And it's a feeling that is associated with an individual who identifies as a homosexual or a gay person. And so it was at a point that I felt it wouldn't be best if as a gay person growing in Ghana, one will also have to go through all of these challenges and all of the struggles of having to battle with their sexuality, their religion, the culture, societal norms and expectations and all of that. And so I felt it would be good to really put in place mechanisms that really support a queer person in Ghana, whether in the closet or even out of the closet. When you click or when you search for LGBT in Ghana, most of the information that one would find out is mostly homophobia and comments from religious leaders and people who don't necessarily mean well to the community. And for me, I felt it was a bit disturbing that all the information that you find out is all negative and nothing positive about us as queer Ghanaians. And so it was at that moment that I felt I would start a blog page that would project the community and then begin to direct our conversation and our narrative in a way that allows for queer people to really speak for themselves and then also be able to find community and then also just have information and knowledge around ourselves so that we can grow better in all. And so I created the social media platforms to start with all of this. And prior to that, there has been an organization, like you mentioned, that existed, but whatever they were doing were mostly in quiet and just limited to the few queer people who knew about them. So if you were a queer person who didn't know about this organization, then you don't even get to also benefit from whatever offer they were offering. And I felt, and that was also coming also from a personal place, the fact that I also didn't know about any queer organization from growing up and all of that. Whatever I learned or whatever I find out, I had to do it on my own, to which I felt not everybody's going to get the opportunity to do that. And so if people are not going to get that opportunity to research and find out for themselves, then how about we make life easy for queer people to really find information and find resources and find support as and when they need it. And so the reason for creating the space came in 2018. And then, like I mentioned earlier, a few other colleagues came on board, and then we started putting things together and then moving it to the next step. So we put in place our overall goals of creating a safe and inclusive society for LGBTQ persons, where the rights of LGBTQ persons are respected and protected. And from there, it's been us and we pushing and doing the best that we can for the queer community here in Ghana.
So recently in the news, there's been a lot of talk about this draft law, the promotion of proper human sexual rights and a Ghanaian family values bill, which, as I've read about, is this, horrific, terrible homophobic piece of legislation. Can you talk about this bill and explain it to our audience, and talk about your Kill the Bill campaign to prevent it from becoming law?
Sure. So this bill actually has its genesis, and maybe let me start from where it started from. So in 2019, on our Twitter page, we were tagged in a post that said, the World Congress of Families coming to Ghana, so the Ghanaian queer community should be alert about this group. And so my colleague showed it to me. I was like, what is going on? I was like, I don't know what is going on. And so we did a little bit of research, and we found out that World Congress of Family are actually the same group that were behind the Kill the Gay bills in Uganda in 2014, and then also the same group that influenced the passing of the SSMPA, the same-sex sexual prohibition bill in Nigeria. And so when we saw that, we really got alarmed, and we were like, oh my goodness, why are they in Ghana? Is this our face? As in, they come also here to also pass similar bills in Ghana. So what we did was, so they first of all capitalized on a conversation that was already happening in Ghana, where some anti-LGBT groups like the Coalition for Proper Human Sexual Rights and Family Values, and this name, I mean, that's the name of the coalition for Proper Human Sexual Rights and Family Value. So it's interesting how, I don't know how narcissistic they are, but they just pick their name and then place it on the bill and title the bill with their name. And then they only added the promotion of proper human sexual rights, and then added Ghanaian family values, added Ghanaian in the middle somewhere, and then qualified it with whatever bill they were pushing. But this group was established in 2013. And they have been the group that have been promoting homophobia in Ghana mostly. It didn't really have a lot of support then, but what they did was they capitalized on issues that are happening in the country. And let me also mention that when we mention LGBT issues in Ghana, it's very sensational because most of Ghanaians are very conservative. And so LGBT issues, once it comes up, it always arouses a lot of emotions, and you hear a lot of like comments, from people who are not even supposed to speak on the matter or doesn't even have any knowledge. There was a comprehensive sexuality education curriculum that was supposed to be introduced in Ghana, where it teaches Ghanaian students about respect for diversity and respect for human rights, and then also sexual rights and sexual minority and all of that. But this group tagged the whole bill as a gay agenda and capitalized on that document and said, oh, they are even bringing up a conference in Ghana that Ghanaians should attend. And so, and then they said it was the World Congress of Families conference in Ghana. The conference really happened. And one interesting thing that I, myself and one other colleague, we registered and we attended the conference. So we actually had a first-hand information about what they are looking for and what they hope to achieve. And in this conference, if I want to summarize it, their main aim was to criminalize LGBTQ persons and any progressive movements in Ghana. So to be honest, this bill is not just targeting just LGBT alone. They are looking at women's rights, they are looking at feminists, they are looking at targeting even family, right? Because when you read the bill and the imports of the bill, about when they talk about Ghanaian family values. When you really read it, there is nothing Ghanaian about, and there is nothing family value about this bill, because Ghanaians practice extended family first system. We are an African country that practices extended family system that allows for the grandmother, the grandfather, the auntie, the uncle, the nephew, the niece, and every other person to have a stake in an individual's life from infancy to adulthood and all of that. So at what point do you define family values and limit it to just a father being the head, and the mother, and then the children, you know? And so when you look at it, this is clearly an importation of a system that is not even our system. Right, where the target has a Ghanaian family value, to which any other thing that falls outside of the mother, the father, and then the children, it means it is alien, or it is something that they are hoping to criminalize. And so, well, this World Congress, once we found out, we realized that it is actually an American far-right evangelical groups, you know, that have always been pushing their idea of what family is supposed to be, and then also fighting against the progressive achievements that has happened within the human rights struggle all over these years. They targeted and then also coming here to also import the ideology here, because it has been rejected in places like US and in Europe and other places, you know. So they are now looking for a new breeding ground. So they feel like Ghana and other African countries are like a breeding ground. We opened the space early 2021, and then this same group came back and said, oh, see, the gay people, the gay agenda, they're out there, they're trying to come for your family, your children, and all the other things. And when you listen to the rhetorics that they are putting out there, these are actually rhetorics that were coming from these evangelical groups who came and did the whole conference in Ghana. So what they were saying were just echoing the things that were said by these groups when they were in Ghana. So we were not surprised hearing the things that they said. We opened our space, they called on the president and then also the Inspector General of Police to shut the space down and all of that. And then moving forward, we also engaged with the media. For the first time, we as a committee stood up, engaged with the media, spoke our truths, put our conversation out there, explained to the media, targeting the Ghanaian masses as to why we created the community space. The community space was basically to offer queer Ghanaians a safe space where they can come and tap into some of the services that were offered, the psychosocial, the legal services, the workshop on human rights and workshop on economic empowerment and all of that, to which a lot of times the community are affected by all of these things. So we thought creating that space will offer the community the chance to actually come there and tap into some of these resources, and then be able to support themselves and be able to contribute their quota towards the development of the country, and then also live up to their full potential and expectations. Because we have criminals who are sacked from school, those who are sacked from work, those who cannot really attend to some hospitals and all of that because they will be stigmatized or discriminated against. Like, there is so much that the community faces here in the country. So if anything at all, I think we should have been applauded and given the heads up or given the support for creating such a space for Ghanaians who are queer to really receive some form of support and all of that. But no, homophobia really clouded all of these intentions that we had, that led to the police closing down the space. Now, after the police closed down the space, what happened next is that this same group now capitalized on the closure of the space and said, oh, the LGBT agenda again. Look at them. They've opened an office. They are promoting gay issues, and they are going to promote HIV, you know, just whole negative and debunked rhetorics going out there. They are going to corrupt your children. They are going to destroy the family and all of that. And so we need to curb them, or we need to do something to stop them. Right. And so fast forward, we saw this bill come. Right? And then, so, I mean, the bill was actually leaked, and so we even had it before it was actually introduced to the floor of Parliament. Now, when we saw the import of the bill, we were like, oh my goodness, Like, how hateful can
Mm.
one be? This it's a 36 pages of complete hate and vile and wickedness.
Mm.
And it was shocking to know that in the 21st century,
Mm.
some humans can sit somewhere and then draft such draconian bill to target their own people or other humans, right? And so we went into the bill. So essentially, the bill is criminalizing our existence as queer persons and giving up to 10 and up to 5 years imprisonment for queer Ghanaian.
Mm.
Now the bill is also giving another offer that if you don't want to go to prison or if you don't want to go to 5 years imprisonment, then what you do is that you have to recant your sexuality
Mm.
and then accept a conversion therapy, where they
Mm.
are suggesting a five-fold holistic therapy, where you have to go under prayers and some psychology, those whole therapy that has been debunked in places like the West, and where it's at this point is being criminalized. These
Mm.
people are actually proposing such a treatment to be meted out on people who hold themselves out to be LGBTQ persons. What goes on to say is that now, as activists, as advocates, or sympathizers of LGBTQ persons, so if you're a doctor and then you offer any form of services to any person who is deemed as a queer person, you're supposed to actually report the person or give the person out. Or if you don't do that, then this bill is criminalizing and giving you up to 10 years imprisonment. Now, it's also
Mm.
criminalizing any form of support in terms of funding or any support that goes to support the community. So it's also shutting any form of advocacy or activism that speaks against any form of injustice that is meted out to any queer person in the country. Now, the bill is also going ahead to criminalize any form of affection that is expressed outside. So if you are two males and then you express any form of affection outside and people deem it or term this as being LGBT related, then this bill is criminalizing you. Now, the bill is also criminalizing the use of sex toys. So if you are a Ghanaian and you use any form of sex toy, this bill is criminalizing you. Now, the bill is also putting an obligation on families to report other family members that they perceive or know to be LGBTQ person. So the bill is even dividing families and actually putting that obligation that report a family member once you know and perceive that family member to be LGBTQ person. The bill is also giving authority to people who are perceived or termed as religious leaders, traditional leaders, opinion leaders, and all of that. But we're also in a country where, even though these people have a certain form of reverence, they are not given any form of authority to punish anybody in this country. That responsibility has been given to the Ghana police to do that. But this bill is actually offering them that authority where they can actually hold somebody in for being or identify as an LGBTQ person. So this bill is essentially giving rights to ordinary Ghanaians to attack other Ghanaians when that Ghanaian is deemed or termed as an LGBTQ person, or even if somebody just don't like you or doesn't want to hurt you or something, this bill is giving that right to. And it's actually also giving legitimacy to all the abuses that we have as queer people been complaining about in this country, that abuses are being meted out to us. And this bill is giving legitimacy to all of these abuses, where people now feel it is okay to now attack an LGBTQ person because there is a bill that criminalizes that. The bill is also not a Ghanaian language bill. When you look at the way the bill is put, this is not the way we even draft bills in Ghana. When you look at other bills that has gone on in the country, that is not it. The language using words like LGBTQIAAPP plus, even as a community, we don't even do that. But these people have gone on to define their own terminologies, right? And then using that in the bill. I is intersex person. How do you even criminalize an intersex person? What has an intersex person done that you want to criminalize the person? But the bill is criminalizing an intersex person and all of that. So just being born an intersex, you know, being born gay, being born a lesbian and bisexual, you know, without any form of even sexual activity or whatsoever, the bill is essentially just criminalizing you and all of that. Like, who does that in the 21st century? I think we've gone and moved way past this, but here we are being dragged back to a Victorian age or like a medieval age where people are demonized and then targeted and attacked for no reason at all. And that is what the bill is doing. We use words like recant, right? Like if you're using words like recant, like which year are we in the medieval age? Why should somebody recant their sexuality? for what reason? You know, and then accept conversion therapy, you know, imposing a form of treatment that is not consented on an individual because the person identifies as an LGBTQ persons, the target on family, defining family, like the languaging that this bill even uses, it's not a Ghanaian bill. So then you ask yourself, where is this bill coming from? And so then you now begin to compare the bill to some of the bills that have manifested in places like Nigeria, Uganda, Georgia, Poland, Russia, and all those places. And then you realize that this bill is actually the combination of all of those bills that have surfaced in all of this country, put together into one, and then given to 8 members of parliament in Ghana to present as a Ghanaian bill to criminalize their own citizens, right? Because even in that bill, some of the MPs who are sponsoring the bill do not actually even know the imports of the bill. So it clearly tells you that this is the influence of this far-right group who are using these MPs as puppets to promote their ideology and their agenda that has been rejected in the West and all of that, and now looking for places like Ghana, places like Uganda, places like Nigeria, where there are lots of conservative persons, are places that are being targeted with some of these bills.
Glad that you mentioned the influence of these far-right evangelicals from the US, because I think in the conversation about LGBT rights in Africa, there's like this idea that, you know, being gay is like a Western construct, or like there's this Western influence. But in reality, I mean, the real Western influence are these far-right evangelical groups using African countries as a battleground for their own culture wars. So I'm really glad that you highlighted that.
Exactly, and then let me just add that. I mean, when you say being gay is un-African, one will ask you, first of all, why do we have some laws in this country that's actually criminalizing, especially gay sexual activity? If there wasn't anything like gay, then first of all, there shouldn't have even been any colonial laws that criminalize. But the British were here. They saw the relationship, and then they saw the life and the lifestyle of Africans, and they also realized that there were LGBTQ persons among them, and that is how come they introduced such laws. And moving forward, there has also been documentations of gay sexual or gay interactions even within Africa. There is one book called Boy, Wife, and Female Husband. It documents into detail some of these practices that existed in especially places like Ghana. And then there was another book, I've forgotten the name, but even when you look at queerness in Africa, and especially Ghana, there are still remnants of queerness that still exists in Ghana. There are some traditional practices here in Ghana where the chief or the priest or all of these other people dress in the opposite sex to express themselves. There's a dance called Bawa dance in the northern part of Ghana where the men cross-dress to perform this dance. And it has its own meanings and its own significance. And this dance is still being practiced. Now, you also have some of us who also live in places like the cities and all of that, where I am a gay person. I am a Ghanaian. I was born right here in Ghana. I've lived my whole life in Ghana. I have other friends and other associates and other people who also identify as gay or bisexual or lesbian and all of that. At what point do you dismiss us and say that we are not Ghanaians and that we are imported from the West or something? No, we are not. We are equal Ghanaians. We've lived most of our life here in Ghana. So we cannot be an imported people from any imported country whatsoever. We are legitimate citizens of this country where we've lived most of our life here in the country. It is the lies that these people say to themselves and the hypocrisy that exists with their agenda of trying to dismiss us as a community and as a people, and the constant effort to demonize and vilify us. It's why they will use words like it's a Western agenda or a Western importation. No.
So I wanted to talk to you about coming out as a tactic. I think many have attributed the relative success of gay rights in the West to this emphasis on coming out. And I think sort of the argument is that it's easy to hate gay people in like the abstract, right? Or trans people. But once you realize that like your siblings or your children or your friends, your neighbors, your coworkers are queer or trans, then that can change hearts and minds. And I interviewed a man called George Lakey earlier. He was active in the gay rights movement in America. He came out in the 1970s. He's talked about coming out as a nonviolent tactic, but obviously coming out entails great risks, right? You can lose your job, you can lose your family. So how do you see coming out? Do you see it as a useful tactic for LGBTQ activists in Ghana? Like, do you encourage people to come out?
I think that coming out should always be left to an individual to decide. And for a place like Ghana, to be honest, there's a lot that one risks losing when they come out, even in this country. So it takes a lot of courage to come out in a place like Ghana. Now, first of all, your security is gravely compromised once you come out. Now you're going to be met with constant attack from not just family or the neighborhood in which you live, but even from random people, right? And very vile, demeaning, and vicious things will be said to you even when you come out from other people. And then you wonder why people would do that, you know. But one other aspect that I am a little bit concerned about is people who take the role of activism or head various organizations or institutions that are deemed or termed as LGBT-led or LGBT organizations and all of that, you know, because once you moved from your personal life to an organization or an institution and all of that, I think the ball game changed from there. At that point, you can't say you want to be in the closet, because how do you be in the closet and fight for a minority group? There has to be some form of visibility. There has to be some form of personal experiences, and there has to be some form of personal challenges to the status quo, to the system, and even to the work that one is doing. So once you put yourself in the place of activism and advocacy and all of that, I believe that at that moment you have to, it comes with the work. You actually have to come out. You really have to speak from a very personal perspective. Speak your own truth. Speak to all of the institutions, all the other places, and all of the other groups that exist here, the politicians, the media, the authorities, the legal, I mean, all the systems that exist here, you have to speak to them. And by speaking to them, you have to actually speak from a lived experience. And I always say that when you take the place of activism, and especially queer activism, it's a lifetime work or a job, and it is actually a field that is so risky. It's a field that one can lose their self or their life in the process. It's so much. There's the burden is so much within the activism space, and so one has to be strong enough to be in this space to be able to push for change to happen. I also say that is also not to undermine the work of allies whatsoever, but I believe that if we are going to achieve any form of change, it actually has to come from the community themselves. And then when you look at all the struggles that have happened all throughout the world, the change have come from the people themselves. And the people never hid or they didn't hide themselves to achieve the change. They put themselves out there, they caused the change themselves, and then they had support from allies in causing that change. And I believe it is the same for queer people all over the world, and specifically also here in Ghana.
You mentioned the burden of queer activism. You have faced death threats. If this law that we talked about is passed, you could be imprisoned, and yet you still continue to engage in this very visible activism. I'm wondering, like, what keeps you going?
I think what keeps me going, to be honest, as my life, even as a gay person, right? In all of this, I'm also a gay person, first of all. So interestingly, if a bill like this should pass, now first of all, they are criminalizing me as a gay person, giving me 5 years. They're also criminalizing me as an activist and giving me 10 years. So I'm looking at a 15 years in prison or something. Like, if they don't get me here, they will get me there. But what really encouraged me and pushed me to go, like I mentioned earlier, is the fact that I am a gay person, and whatever we are doing now is not for me per se, but it's for posterity. I've had to go through all of these challenges and all of these bottlenecks. It will be unfair and unfortunate of me not to make my life or life any better for those who are going to come after someone like me or any of my other colleagues or people who exist now have left. Life always have to be better, and it starts from people who have recognized the effect that is happening at the moment and championing for such change to happen. And the reason why I'm still also very vocal and very visible is that personally, what really scares me the most is silence. Silence scares me so much. And in the face of injustice and in the face of discrimination and in the face of violence, like Desmond Tutu says, silence only goes to benefit the oppressor. And if we recognize that there is a lot of oppression that is going on in this country, especially targeted at LGBTQ persons, then we as LGBTQ persons who exist now hold us an obligation to change that and make life better for the coming generation. And if it means that we have to lose our life in that process, which is unfortunate and very hard, we still have to do it. We cannot be silenced in the face of oppression. It means that I will even die twice before I even live. Because first of all, the silence means that I am being killed silently. And I am going to die anyway if I'm silent. But if I speak up, then it means that through my speaking up, if I die, at least I have said something, I have caused a change, I have done something that is going to cause posterity to live a much better life. And that has always been the place of activism and human rights activism, especially all across the world. And I believe it's the same for us as queer people also in Ghana, who are championing this change.
Thank you. I think that's a great place to end. Thank you so much for this conversation. It was very informative and inspiring. I'm sure our audience will really appreciate it. Thank you for taking the time to speak with me today.
Thank you so much.
If you think these conversations are important and would like to see them continue, please consider supporting NVI and the work we do by subscribing to this YouTube channel, following us on Twitter and Facebook, and visiting our website. Also, please consider donating to our organization. Every little bit counts to help build a more just and nonviolent world.